The seed's plans. I'd listened till the early hours of the morning to the plans of the seed that had rooted firmly into the mind of my man, and no amount of ifs and buts were going to change it. Even if I had to go down on my knees and beg with the promise of sex 3 times a day, nothing was going to uproot this well-established oak. 2 bottles of wine later, I eventually put my hands in the air and surrendered to the little seed that had grown too quickly, too soon. The seed that I had planted only 2 years previous, when I'd fallen in love with the empty shell in rural Brittany, and then used my woman's power of persuasion to entice my man to sign on the dotted line and become a 2-house family. The guilty secret had been revealed, and my man had taken it upon himself to hand in his month's notice. Once this cat had been let out of the bag, he then revealed the rest of his plans he had for the both of us. The house in England was to go on the market, as it wasn't possible to continue with the mortgage payments with just 1 wage coming in, and also this would free up the remaining chunk of equity, which would be put toward the cost of renovating the shell into our desired dream home. I was to continue working for another 6 months to keep some money coming in for when the house's renovations were finished, and then I'd take that big life-changing leap. The leap I wasn't so keen on doing at this point in my life. I would also move my skinny butt out to France to join my husband and live happily ever after. This was the big plan, which for a lot of people would be a dream come true. People who were bored and fed up with their lot in the UK. A plan that might have brought a romantic smile to the wife of the husband, whose only desire was to settle down, have 2.5 kids and stay at home all day, happy and content to wipe little arses, feed sickly-looking food into waiting open mouths, and to talk baby talk for the next 5 to 6 years. A plan that obviously had a few holes, the biggest of which being rather more like the size of a crater, which begged to ask the question: where the hell would I rest my weary feet? And where would I lay my head at the end of the long, stressful day in the office? And where would I have my space to be free and enjoy my obligatory glass of wine whilst enjoying my evening meal, sat in comfort with a roof over my head? Apparently this question had already been thought through and resolved. I stared in disbelief as my man explained his carefully thought-out plan, and I wondered if he'd actually been awake for the last 7 years, or if he'd been living in his own sleepy bubble. How could he possibly think that I could live for even 6 hours in the mansion at the other end of town, let alone 6 months? And how could he possibly imagine that I would look at him any differently to that of pure, unimaginable disbelief? We'd save money, I heard him say. Yes, but I'd lose my will to live, I responded, wide-eyed in obvious shock. I felt like a child being sent to stay with the strict aunt because I'd been a very naughty girl and Mummy just needs a break, darling. It'll be fine and it's only for the 6 months, was his response. I was shocked into silence. How could it be fine to live under the same roof as the woman I despised, and with the same woman who despised me more in return? And how was it suddenly fine that my man was going to leave for 6 months, while I was left to be the breadwinner of the family, left to sleep alone in a cold, empty bed in a mansion with an evil dwarf and a giant living under its roof? There was a further large hole in this plan which had become visible to me. What will we do for money when the house is finished? You know I don't speak French, I asked cautiously, as every hole I had found so far had been fixed with polyfiller. You'll have time. You can take lessons while I'm away and we can think about jobs and work after. I can check out work opportunities whilst I'm there. Why wait? He responded excitedly. Let's do it now, while we're young, he added with his winning smile. I knew it had been my doing for planting the seed firmly into the core of my man's brain, as I'd used my persuasion tactics about completing the house and then moving out there in the future. But this seed had been a future seed, not a 6-month grow-yourself-a-tree seed. Maybe I'd been mistaken and planted the wrong one. I thought I'd carefully planted a grow slowly and develop over 20 years' time seed. But I must have been mistaken and obviously planted a magic, quick-growing one. Or the other possibility was that the seed I had planted had been right, but maybe someone else had been feeding my seed with fertilizer and had been constantly watering my seed when I hadn't been looking. And as I heard the words Big and Dave come out of my man's mouth to explain that Big Dave was also planning to spend some time in France to help his new best friend, it was then I realized who my secret gardener was. The culprit for secretly watering my carefully planted seed, the one who had wittingly grown and nurtured my seed, which had been meant only for my not-so-green-fingered hands to grow at the rate of my liking. Big Dave had used my seed of change against me, yet to his obvious advantage. He had used it to develop his own seed of change, as in a month's time, he was off to France for 3 months to help with the house and to also have time out to reflect on exactly what he wanted to do with his life. The big pain in the ass had suddenly become a conniving, huge pain in the hole. It was only 2 or 3 days later that we had our first young couple looking excitedly around our beloved home, and as I heard them making their plans for their future together, how they could change the house and the garden to suit their needs, to fit in with their own well-established future plans, I had that same feeling of dread I'd had 6 months ago, the dread I'd felt for my very own unknown future. The couple had obviously seen as good a future for themselves in our house as we had seen only 4 years previous, as their offer was placed and then accepted, and 2 weeks on, I was living in a half-empty shell surrounded by large, half-filled brown boxes, waiting open-mouthed to devour the next piece of my identity. Would it be possible for me to live without my identity for the 6 months that were approaching imminently? Why do we surround ourselves with inanimate objects after we've entered into this world with nothing, when we'll certainly be leaving at a time unknown to us with zilch? We are surrounded by a world of possessions, but if we take them all away and strip ourselves bare, isn't our true identity what lies deep within our skin? The identity we were born with, and which no amount of stuff can change or reshape the way we act and the way we simply just are.